Thank you, Sydney. So today is an exciting afternoon for my students and myself and my city. This is the first time that students have had a chance to present their work that stemmed from a curriculum unit. And this essentially began last spring when we proposed the idea to Jim and to the leadership team about students coming to Yale to show essentially the point of our curriculum unit, which is the student product. And through lots of people's hard work and through a lot of people's support, we're here today. Last year, I was able to spend my summer in Dr. Saltzman's seminar called Physiological Determinants of Global Health. And through that seminar, my team of teachers were able to explore different issues related to global health. I happen to be interested in air pollution and its effects on the respiratory system, being a physiology teacher. Part of my goal when I teach my students is to make the classroom relevant to their real lives. Why does it matter? What's the point? And what can you take away from it? But included is how can we extend the learning beyond just the 180 days that you have the students? So in my curriculum unit, I try to instill in my students the idea of interdisciplinary learning, that what you do in science matters in history, and what it matters in English, and it matters even in art. That connection was difficult for my students. And through their struggle, through their perseverance, my student Diana Troung is here today to speak with you. And so now I'd like to introduce Diana Troung.
Good afternoon. My name is Diana Troung, and I'm currently a senior at Mount Pleasant High School in San José, California. This last school year, Ms. Wythe, my physiology teacher, taught me an interdisciplinary curriculum unit she created entitled Every Breath You Take, which focused on the respiratory system. This unit was the result of her participation in Dr. Saltzman's seminar, Physiological Determinants of Global Health. In this unit, I learned how air pollution affects our respiratory system, specifically how our alveoli are damaged and how our bronchioles become filled with soot. In class, we were taught the anatomy and physiology of the lungs. At the end of the unit, for the assessment, I had to connect my chosen respiratory disease to occupation, time period, artwork, and country, which all had to simultaneously connect. To showcase what the class learned, in groups of 3, we created a website and presented our research and creation in front of the class. The respiratory disease my group chose was lung cancer. And here is our website. Though many people did not realize it, lung cancer was very prominent during the Industrial Revolution in Great Britain and America. During that era, many people were prone to the disease, but coal miners were the most affected. Coal miners were more exposed to toxic chemicals than people with healthy lungs and blood. Miners worked in tight spaces underground, forcing them to inhale the polluted air surrounding them. Chemicals in the soot made it harder for miners to neutralize or remove toxins and made their immune system less effective. One challenge I faced in Ms. Vythe's unit was to connect a piece of art to respiratory health. The artwork my group chose is titled Coal Miners in Narrow Seams by artist Noel Cunningham. Cunningham was known for his oil paintings during the Great Depression. The artwork presented a miner in a tunnel with his face centimeters from the ground, appearing to be crawling. In the painting, Cunningham portrayed the darkness of the piece by using monochromatic tones, just as his guys of those days. From his hollowed-out eyes, large knuckles, to crouched posture, it is evident that the miners saw the darkness of their future. This unit was very different than what I've been exposed to in other classes. I never had to merge different subjects together to complete a task. Not only did I use my knowledge of science, but I also had to incorporate history and art to complete this innovative assessment. Unlike curriculum units in other classes, this used an interdisciplinary approach, which is very effective. I really credit Ms. Vythe for taking this opportunity at Yale to create a unit that has truly changed the way I see things. Thank you all for this unique opportunity to present at Yale today.
So, our former Y&I fellow, Libby Germer, was also able to bring her students to talk to you today. And we're going to begin with Ladasia to speak with you.
I'm really nervous. Today I will be reciting the poem Ghetto Woman by Annie Ruth. Your family is ghetto people. You know how I can tell? Your grandma was a drunkard, and your cousins live in cells. You'll turn out to be just like them. Ain't no sense in fooling yourself. For you're bound to be ghetto people. For you, there's nothing else. Ain't no sense in going to college and keeping those imaginary goals. 'Cause see, for all you ghetto people, the story has been told. You'll either have 10 babies or live a life of crime. Yes, you ghettos people's lives, not even worth a dime. And if you don't marry a bum who beats you black and blue, you'll probably end up in a box with people crying over you. Because your family is ghetto people. I know you're all the same. Now come on, ghetto woman, and answer to your name. Yes, I'm a ghetto woman, and my family made mistakes. My grandma was a drunkard, and my cousins the police have chased. Yes, I'm going to college, and I always keep my goals. You just watch carefully and see my story told. See, I was a ghetto woman, and proud from whence I came. For being poor and living in slums, I'll never be ashamed. And though I am a rich woman, the ghetto is in my heart. For in it, I learned a sense of pride, dignity, and I learned my most essential part. I learned that people can't be judged by their family's actions or the places that they call home, for it's a person's heart and soul to make a judgment on. Thank you.
My name is Libby, and I had the privilege and the honor to be a teacher of honors government last year. 2 of my exceptional students are here. That was Ladasia Harris, and you're going to hear in a bit from Mia Tyler, who also was a part of that class. I have the gift of hindsight. I didn't have to do the hard work this last summer of writing a new unit. I just get to see that 2 students who a year ago were new to me are now college freshmen, and they're here with me, and that's a gift. So looking back, I want to tell you what we did and what we've learned from that process, and I hope inspire and encourage others to do similar things. So when I applied for the Yale National Initiative as a new teacher in Richmond Public Schools of history and government, I said, what would my students really get into? And I thought about the graffiti scrawled across the desks and like etched into every solid thing at my school. And I thought, the bottom life. And so I was interested in the history of public housing and how, as a nation, we have viewed that history. And so I started, and I got to last summer, exhume the real story, like what was the beginning of public housing when it seemed like a great idea, and what happened in between then and now. And I specifically got to focus on Hillside Court, which is the public housing project of the 6 conventional projects in Richmond, from which students at my high school, Wythe High School, Bulldogs, feed. So that's where some of my students come from or have lived at some point in their lives. So the launch point, and in just a minute we will start a PowerPoint presentation for which we won the history fair, but moving on. So we put together this project because I began looking at archived photos of Hillside Court when it was first constructed, and we learned that it was an all-white housing project. I mean, like literally it said white housing project. And across town, the same building with the same materials and the same funding source was built, and it was called the Negro Housing Complex. And so, like, that was how it started. And as you can imagine, within about 18 years, Hillside Court was drained of white families, and black families have steadily moved in. And now today, Hillside Court, as most of our students perceived, is all black. And I think today there are 2 white families at Hillside Court. But that stark contrast was a surprise to us. It was a surprise to my current students. And it's really an interesting story worth telling that I'm sure, as most of you know, is paralleled by all of the large cities in our country. And so white flight, suburbanization, we looked at those from the microcosm of Richmond City. So what we're going to show you again is like a 5-minute PowerPoint presentation, award-winning, that we have a big trophy for. But anyways, this presentation features the voices of some of the women who we were able to interview. So you'll be hearing a part of the oral history that we undertook. Let's try this.
I didn't want to come here, but I'm making the best of it. This is my community, so I do a lot of things to help the community. My house burned down, and that's how I ended up here. They gave me a government apartment. Within 2 months, I took it.
I came down here to live because first my husband died, and then my daughter had got in trouble, and I took up her lease to take care of her kids. And that's how I got to Hillside.
Because it's like, okay, people put something on Hillside, but Hillside is not as bad as you think it is. I could have moved out a little while back, but I'm okay. I'm on tenant council, Hillside Court Partnership. We do the food bank. I get along with all the kids. Everybody call me grandma, mama. You know, it's just wonderful.
And I grew up on Biden Avenue on the north side. And we still, both my parents is passed now. I lost my mother 3 years ago to breast cancer. But we still had a family home. And me and my sisters and my brother, by us being on fixed incomes, I have a nephew that's a school teacher, and he had 4 kids. And we allowed him to stay in the house because we don't have the type of money. If something go wrong with the roof, or if the hot water heater go out, you know, then you got to pay taxes every year. We didn't have that kind of money. So we allowed my nephew to live in there by him having a good job, and also his wife, that we know it's going to be upkept. And it's not going to sit there and just go to waste. But I wanted to throw something else in there too. Hillside, people give Hillside a bad name, and things do happen here, but the majority of the time, it's not even the people that live here. It's people that other people are allowed to come down in here. My granddaughter that I said that graduated from Franklin Military, she got shot right out here in front of the
She okay?
rec center.
Yeah.
Because it was a big fight down here in which she shouldn't have did, but she coming to the fight to see what's going on. And in the meantime, when they started shooting, she caught a bullet. So and this person, I think he lived up in Oak Grove somewhere. So it's not the people in Hillside, it's the people that's coming in here. You know, I mean, I learned a long time ago, you can live anywhere, but it's what you make of it, where you live. If you stay in your house and mind your business, and don't be having a whole lot of people in and out, and keep your grounds clean and stuff like that, you're not going to have no trouble out in the back.
Describe the neighborhood or atmosphere where you live here.
Can I describe it? Well, when I was down here, like I said, things have happened. But on the whole, I never had no problems out in my life.
When we started the food bank, I was real happy. I be at the front of the line. We've been doing it for 5 years. I stay in the same place. I think I've missed once or twice, and the people that come through and I get to interact with and talk to and say, how you doing this month? Make sure you come back next month. They be so happy to get their food, and I love that. And that's something special for me. Yeah. That food bank when they get their food and stuff.
Yeah, I got a little church up the street, a little company.
She said she look, Yvonne loved children, especially babies. She'll steal them babies. And they know to go to her house too to
Little
get that
baby 2 years old
candy.
knocked on my door.
Who? By himself.
But see, he know where he was going.
I bet he did.
Oh, your little one you called me and told me about it. Oh my goodness.
Got those little bow legs, and they just a fat. And he was going up the street. I looked at him. Get ready to knock on my door. I said, where you going? Start laughing. Then I caught another little one. I was sitting on the front, and I don't know, I just happened to go down there, and I heard a door slam. And the, wasn't nobody out there but me. And I said, where that baby come from? It was another baby.
See, they tell.
When I
Where'd
looked
you get this
around, the baby had went down to Bruce Street and was going up the street, but good thing I was out there. Then I went around and looked. The lady said, you babysitting? I said, And I took the baby to his mama. She laughed like it was funny. I said it wasn't funny. Anybody could have came up Bruce Street and grabbed him. And that would have been it.
Oh, you could have got hit by a car.
Yeah. Just with a pamper on. I said, this way. They don't, I mean, you know, I ain't talking about them, but they need to watch them channel.
That's what I
seen a
mean, they
little
sleep
boy.
at night. I mean, up all
Pitch
night and
black.
sleep during the day.
In the field.
And a lot of these kids are raising
He
themselves.
back there in the field.
Yvonne, what else we be doing? Oh, we as seniors, Miss Shelton makes sure, she makes sure we go on trips. We have been, where do we go to Lewis Botanical Gardens. They went to see the lights. We go out and eat. We have people to come in. We've had cooking classes. We've had chronic illness classes. Wow. What else? Because I got so many certificates from the Virginia Coordinative Extension or something.
Yeah.
I didn't want to come here, but I'm making the best of it. This is my community, so I do a lot of things to help the community.
And I would like to say two things in particular before I take a seat and let Mia tell you more about the project. These two students are phenomenal examples to me of people who have overcome difficulty. Our school is not a great learning environment. It's not an easy teaching environment. I'm sure many of us teach in places that feel that way, where the odds are really stacked against most students. Ladasia, we talked about this, so she's cool with me sharing it, but she's a first-generation high school graduate and college attendee. And Mia would be if her brother didn't go to college first. Jerk. And it was a real joy and a privilege to be their teacher and to share with them, I hope, what they'll carry with them for a long time, which is that public history and history in general is the it's the story of people and how people have adapted to their environment over time. And we're a part of it, and they're making it, and I'm so honored to be here today. Thanks.
Hello. So to give you a little timeline of the project, this interest in public housing kind of sparked with a documentary that we watched in my class called Pruitt-Igoe. And Pruitt-Igoe is a public housing project in St. Louis. And watching Pruitt-Igoe in our class reminded us a lot like Richmond and a lot like other public housing. So it kind of sparked an interest to look more into Hillside Court. From there, we looked more into the project, and one of our classmates called our local radio station to see if we could get any advertisements for interviewers. long story short, we didn't get any ads, but we were offered a chance to be interviewed, and the interview could be presented on the radio. So somebody came into our class one day and asked us all types of questions about the project, what we wanted to know and find out, and we basically asked for interviewers, which kind of in a way was better than advertisement. And though we didn't get any interviewers from that, that was a really great experience. From there, we interviewed Linda Clark, and Linda Clark found out about this project through a Facebook page. So she came to our classroom, we interviewed her. She's an amazing woman, spiritual, the complete opposite of what you would probably think. She lived in public housing for a long time, raised children in public housing, and is doing very well for herself. And that was our first interviewee. So that was kind of like really special for us. And that was like a really great experience too. From there, I did a radio. I was on the news, on our local news channel. Me and a classmate went on our local news and were interviewed again to talk more about the project, to again ask for more interviewees. And though we did not get any more interviewees, it was again an amazing experience to talk more about the project. And it also let others know, like in our local area, and it gave them a little background about Hillside Court, which was a goal of ours for the project. So that was pretty cool. We won the RVA History Fair in spring, like our teacher was saying, which was actually a very great look for our school, George Wythe High School, because there is a stigma with that school. So we won a project that was pretty nice trophy.
Very large.
Yeah, very
tall. Very large. Sorry.
Yeah. So that actually kind of made us feel really proud, like we were doing something important in teaching others. From there, we presented at VCU at a research conference, and we presented to the Richmond Teacher Residency Program, which were people that just graduated and are getting ready to teach in Richmond Public Schools, to kind of give them a background and into what they're about to get into. So this project was just a lot of great experiences. We wish we would have had more people to interview, more former and current residents, as we didn't get to interview as many people as we liked, but it was a great experience. We learned a lot about the community before and the difference now, and that they're actually doing a lot more positive things than you would think now, and that everything isn't exactly shown. So yeah, thank you.
How's everyone doing? Thank you for having us, and it's a pleasure being here. And I just want to thank Mary Lou also for coming in. She was our seminar leader, so thank you. Thank you guys. That was just wonderful about the public history. And I was thinking earlier Matthew's words when he was talking about invisibility, and that's really what my project was about. So I was in public history with Mary Lou in the history of our everyday lives. And we come from Silicon Valley, and you would think everything is mapped in Silicon Valley. So if you want to go to a restaurant, go into Google Maps, put it in, tells you the direction. In the neighborhood where I teach, in one of the main thoroughfares, on the street corners and in the empty parking lots at night, spring restaurants. So some of them are very elaborate. They have canopies, they have seats. Recently one had a big sign saying grand opening, right? But these places aren't mapped. They're not in Google, believe it or not, in Silicon Valley. And that's really what my project was about. It was about telling directions to places that aren't mapped, and allowing my students to map their own histories and their own lives. And that's what Silicon Valley's Ultra Lado was about. And my students were able to do it and to break that invisibility through filmmaking. And Axel's film that he'll be talking about won our district contest in immigration in the multimedia contest. He has a a plaque from the California State Senate and the United States Congress for his film. So that's pretty impressive of his film being out there and being shown and breaking that invisibility now here and being able to see his film. So thank you for inviting us, and I'm going to turn it over to this amazing young student here.
Good afternoon. My name is Axel Saldana, and I'm a junior at Mount Pleasant High School in San José, California. The purpose of this project came out of the seminar of our everyday lives, how my life as an immigrant is similar to many other immigrants. Also included in this project is a history of present-day Santa Clara Valley. The history of the valley goes back to the 19th and 20th centuries, where only whites were able to buy houses, own property, and work in the wealthy parts of the valley. Many immigrants had to live in the east side and work in farm fields or canneries, for example, canning food or picking up fruit from trees. In the 1960s, a civil rights leader, Cesar Chavez, fought for higher wages and better working conditions. Today, the canneries are gone, big tech companies are forming, and new immigrants are coming. Not just that, but where technology started to become bigger and bigger till now, where you could find the main headquarters of really big companies such as Apple, Facebook, and Google. Now I'm going to talk about the progress of the film. For the film production, we had to know what days we had to film, what time, if our whole group could go film, write a script, all the basics that are required to make a film. We persevered through many retakes. For example, retaking a shot because the camera was too shaky or the lighting was bad. Other technical difficulties we include recording my voice again because I sounded too loud or quiet, or in some rare occasions where our footage got corrupted and got deleted, but we persevered through it and started again. Some of the highlights of our filming experience was filming at Google's headquarters, commonly known as Googleplex, and at the Plaza of Cesar Chavez in San Jose. We are grateful that these big innovative companies let us film in these glorious places. Personally, I am working hard every day to soon become a Google employee. We wish we had a bit more time to make the film even better. Finally, none of this could have been possible without the community I had around me. My group members that I got close to helped me a lot making the film, especially my teacher, Mr. Cavada. What surprised me the most were the different communities in San Jose. For example, in the Cesar Chavez area where we went to go film, everyone who we saw outside was saying, "Good morning, good afternoon, have a nice day." It might be something small, but it surprised me a lot since I don't see that often, especially in East Side San Jose. All I know, I wanted to make a message that not all Mexicans are the same. We should start breaking stereotypes. It's something I've been wanting to do and will continue to strive for. Thank you for listening, and now you could watch my film. My name is Axel, and this is my story. I am from Michoacan, and at 6, my parents decided to move to the United States because they heard that they will have a better life than the one that they were currently living in Mexico. My parents took my brother and I to Tijuana, where we all crossed the border at separate times. From what I remember, I was the first one to cross it and meeting with a coyote and then falling asleep. After I woke up, I was with my uncle in Los Angeles, which I did not know very well. All I know was that he was my mom's brother. And then we drove to San Jose. It was scary for me because that was the first time I was separated from my parents. And I did not know any of my family members in the United States. And I did not know how to communicate with some because I did not know English. My brother finally crossed the border. I was very happy to see him because he's the only one that I really knew and I could communicate with. After 3 more weeks passed, I thought my parents would finally cross the border too, but I was wrong. They did not cross the border until 6 months later. I was very glad to see them because I thought I would never see them ever again. It was my parents' decision to come to the United States because in Dos Aguas, Mexico, where we lived, there was a lot of gang activity going on. and it was not a very educated or wealthy town. My parents came to the US for a better life for me and my big brother to have a better education. My mom and dad faced the barriers of learning English and are still trying to reach their dreams of having a better life here than in Mexico. Today, my dad built Silicon Valley with his hands, and my mom works at a Mexican bakery making traditional bread that you could find in Mexico. I found it pretty easy to learn English, even though when I came here I spoke Spanish when I first started school, but other people also spoke Spanish, so it was easier for me to make friends. My favorite memories is when I won the soccer league at school. I would like to go visit Mexico one day because I don't really remember it and I have friends back there. There are pros and cons about life in the east side. There are dirty places often filled with graffiti, beer bottles on the ground, but the good things, east side has places that no other city has, like the Plaza de Cesar Chavez, named after him, who grew up in the east side barrio called Sal Si Puedes, get out if you can. This is where I lived. What I think Silicon Valley thinks about Mexicans is that they are dirty and think we are all in gangs. When I grow up, I want to be a software engineer. I want to attend a good college. My brother goes to Evergreen College and is studying to become an engineer. Overall, I don't come from an educated family. Not all educated, some dropped out of middle school. To me, education it is important because without it, you can't get a future or a major. I imagine myself working at Google. I am proof that all Mexicans are equal and have rights. I am the new Silicon Valley.
So we'd like to open the floor up for questions, for a few questions, before the students will be available at the displays in the back. Any questions from the audience? Okay. Oh, where? Yes.
I have a million questions, but first of all, congratulations, because you just presented at Yale University. So.
That was a response. It was a two-part poem. So the first part was a man addressing a ghetto woman. Sorry. It was a two-part poem. So the first part of the poem was the man addressing a ghetto woman. And the second part was her responding to him.
And can you talk more about your first days? I mean, that just, when you were here by yourself and then you were waiting for your brother, can you talk more about, if you feel comfortable talking more about that?
Well, like when I first got here, like I said, I didn't know any family members here other than like my uncle picking me up, be like, and me saying, "Oh, who are you?" He's like, "Oh, I'm your mom's brother." He's like, "Oh, you know, all right, I guess I have to go with you." And then from there, it took a while for my brother to cross the border too. But I remember my dad saying that we had an uncle that lived over here, and good thing he lived in San Jose as well, so I stayed with him for a while until my brother crossed the border. And then from there, it took a while too. Like, I remember every day asking my uncles, like, "Oh, when is my mom and dad crossing the border?" He's like, he would just say, next week will come. I'll say, "Oh, where are my parents?" He's like, "Oh, don't worry, they're coming next week." And time passed. 6 months later, they finally came. I remember too, crying here and there, but like, "Oh, I'm not gonna see my parents anymore." And then the first school I went to was a bilingual school. So they spoke Spanish and English. They had some classes only for Spanish speakers, while also giving you a class for English, like to learn it. And then from there, we finally moved out to the east side of San Jose, where I went to an all English school. And from there, I started to learn more English, and that's where I made like more friends too that learned Spanish. So from there, I started.
So I have a couple of questions. First, Ladasia, seemed like when you were reciting the poem, you're really acting, right? I mean, you assume two different characters there. So could you talk about, what you drew on to kind of figure out how you would present those characters?
This is gonna sound kind of bad, but though it was a poem, I strongly relate with that poem. Very strongly relate with that poem. So it really wasn't that hard. It was. I kind of felt like I was just speaking from her point of view. And sometimes it may not get said directly, but things like that do get pumped in your ear in the inner city when you're younger. So it really felt like I was just responding to someone saying it to me. That was it.
Awesome.
Patty?
Mine is less of a question and more just of a comment to Maya. You look exactly like a student that I taught last year, and she is also going to college following her brother, and I wanted to tell you that I'm back here tearing up, because I see these curriculum units making a difference, and I know that the unit that I taught made a difference to Star and her going to college too. So I look at you and you just remind me of my baby. So I wanted to let you know that this makes a difference. These units make a difference, and they make a difference for you guys, which makes all the world of difference for us. That's why we teach.
Again, just in awe of y'all. So you've had some really powerful experiences, I think, with research and filmmaking and field work. And I'm wondering what impact those experiences have had on your plans for the future.
Can I answer? Initially, I did not plan on going to college. That was one. I really thought I was going to join the Navy or something like that, but I have eczema, so they were like, no. I didn't know college exposure. I didn't go on any college trips. I didn't really even apply to any colleges until I had the right amount of teachers kind of ask me, have I ever considered it? And I think this curriculum that we did, it kind of made me think. I'm just people put this stigma on people who come from public housing, and I lived in public housing for a while, but I was I think I'm better than this. So then I started thinking okay, I'm real competitive. So mentally I was okay, I got to prove a lot of people wrong now. So I started working towards trying to go to college and stuff, and I ended up with a full ride. But the things that Miss Germer taught me, even though it wasn't directly hey, go to college, what she was implementing in my life, it really pushed me towards wanting to further my education, because I was so excited to come to class and talk about this. And then I was they're always telling you college is a better version of this. So I'm okay, that might be what I have to do because I'm obsessed with this. I really think learning all this stuff, it pushed me way out of high school. I felt I was over it, I'm ready for the next thing. And it was a great, really great.
I think. Okay.
After going through Ms. Vitug's curriculum unit, she actually taught me two, one about the respiratory system and one about the circulatory system. And it really opened my eyes to show me that I could expand my mind further than I thought I would, because before learning this type of curriculum unit, I would think if I go to a science class, it would just be science, science, science. Or if I go to an English class, it would just be purely English. But after going through her course, it made me open up my mind. And in her circulatory unit, I had to do a Rube Goldberg contraption. So it really made me want to pursue an engineering. Before that, I never wanted to be an engineer. But after making that contraption, after creating a website, I did not know I was capable of doing that. But after I did that, it really helped me, and I really thank her for giving me that opportunity.
Okay, so I think if there's no further, there's more. Yes, go ahead.
College was really never an option for me. My dad didn't graduate high school. My mom finished high school, and though my older brother went to college, he didn't finish. So me applying to colleges and receiving scholarships was like completely different. So it shifted from me going to school and it being about me and furthering my education to doing this for my family and proving something. And it went from that and with this project to doing it for people that I go to school with and people that are like me that don't know it's possible because it is. So me going to college isn't just about me or getting a degree. It's for others and it's for people like me to prove something.
After taking Mr. Cavada's class, he has made me reconsider of what I really want to study. Like I was saying in the film how I wanted to become a software engineer. But after taking his class, he has made me think like filming got to being one of my passions now. I remember before when I took his class, it was like, oh, I don't like filming at all. That filming was just being in movies. But after taking his class, like I said, it has grown into a passion of mine. And now I know it's not just making movies. It could be like making commercials or other advertisements, other stuff that has to do with them. So now I'm really thinking about my choices, like either something to do with film or still in the technology industry.
I think we're safe now. I'd just like to say one final comment that this is the impact of the Yale National Initiative. I think this essentially is the value of this type of work. This is why we as teachers go to the library and research for hours and write and occasionally cry in the corner when we're going over our curriculum units, because to hear these students and to hear their stories and to have it brought forth in this forum is incredible. And I thank you all for listening to them.